the Great Freeze descended, the world fell into a silence so profound, it felt like the earth itself had stopped spinning. For 3 months we walked among them, the frozen statues of our nightmares. They stood encased in ice, motionless in the streets, trapped in the final moments of their aggression. We, the survivors, emerged from our bunkers and basements with a naive hope. We touched their frost-covered faces and laughed nervously, believing that nature had finally done what our weapons could not. We thought the virus had burned itself out, that the cold had sterilized the planet. We began to rebuild, scavenging through the snow-buried ruins, convincing ourselves that we had survived the apocalypse. But we were wrong. The silence wasn't peace, it was a loading screen. We didn't know it then, but we were merely standing in the eye of a hurricane that had spanned millennia. The change didn't start with a sound, but with the light. The sky, which had been a slate of winter gray, began to bleed. It shifted into a bruised purple before settling into a sickening, vibrant red that bathed the snow in the color of fresh iron. The air pressure dropped so violently that people fell to their knees, their ears ringing with a frequency that wasn't quite sound. And then, the cracking began. It started as a singular snap, like a twig breaking in a quiet forest, but soon it became a cacophony of shattering glass. Across every continent, in every city, the ice encasing the infected began to fracture. They didn't thaw slowly, they activated. Millions of dead eyes opened in perfect unison, glowing with a bioluminescent blue that pierced the red gloom. They didn't shiver, they didn't stumble. They simply looked up, awaiting a signal that only they could hear. When they moved, it was an insult to the laws of biology. The shambling, rotting creatures we had fought for years were gone. In their place was something upgraded. They moved with the speed of predators and the coordination of a hive mind. They weren't hunting for food anymore. They were clearing the board. We tried to run, but the planet itself turned against us. As the hordes descended, the ground beneath our feet began to tear open. Volcanoes that had been dormant for centuries erupted in simultaneous fury, choking the atmosphere with ash and turning the day into endless night. Tsunamis swept over the coastlines, not bringing water, but bringing armies of the dead that swam with terrifying efficiency. Tornadoes of fire and dust scoured the plains. It was as if the earth was being terraformed, scrubbed clean of human life to make way for something else. And then came the silence again, broken only by the hum of the engines. They descended from the cloud layer, massive geometric monoliths that defied gravity. They didn't land. They hovered, casting shadows that swallowed entire cities. The violence on the ground stopped instantly. In a display that terrified us more than the slaughter, the zombies stopped their attack. As one, the global horde turned toward the ships and fell to their knees. It was then we understood the horrifying truth. The virus wasn't an accident. It wasn't a lab leak or a mutation. It was a biological operating system, and the users had finally logged on. These creatures weren't monsters, they were infrastructure. They were the ground troops for an invasion that had been planned before humanity even discovered fire. We began to see the pattern in the ruins of history. We realized that the disappearance of the Neanderthals, the vanishing of the Mayans, the sinking of Atlantis, these weren't mysteries, they were harvests. Every dominant civilization reaches a tipping point, and then the masters return to reset the cycle. We are not the owners of this world, we are merely squatters who stayed too long. As the blue beams of light struck the kneeling hordes, their bodies began to change one last time. Their skin hardened into crystalline armor, their bones fused into organic metal. They were no longer the infected, they were soldiers. The extinction of humanity isn't the end of the story, it is simply the beginning of theirs. Welcome to the New World,